Hey guys, welcome to the showcase of the Genestealer Cult Tenebris, and praise be to the four-armed Plaguesire. While we're on break, I wanted to take a moment to show off a couple of the armies that I've got around the studio, aka my house. So I started this army about 3 or 4 years ago, I don't remember exactly. They were my second army ever in the game, and I have fallen in love with the Genestealer Cults. Flashback to the beginning of 9th edition, I still had the 8th edition Genestealer Cult Codex back when I first started the army because their 9th edition codex hadn't come out yet, and I read a little blurb about a cult called Cult Tenebris that was in a ship and flying through space. They got sucked up into a warp storm and they got spit right back out into the Garden of Nurgle. There, Papa Nurgle himself decided he would like to bestow them some gifts, and so we wound up with a Chaos Corrupted Genestealer Cult. So here I have about 2,500 painted points of Genestealer Cults. I have about 1,500, maybe 2,000 points still unpainted, either built and gray or just unbuilt, still in box, that I haven't gotten around to building. But here is about 2,500 points. First thing, let's take a look at the Brood Coven, which consists of the Patriarch, Primus, and Magus. So the Patriarch was the first model that I decided that I was going to convert to this kind of Nurgle look, but they came out with the new Death Leaper model when the new Tyranids launched in 10th edition, and I knew that that was going to be my new Patriarch. So the conversion here is kind of minimal, it's mostly in the paint job, but the big thing was that I stuck wings on his back. I also put some of those little plague drone pincher things you can see on the side there as some extra appendages, just to give him a little more of that Nurgle-y look. And here with the Patriarch, we have some Pure Strain Genestealers. These were painted the day before the Grand Narrative, I think, so it's not the best paint job that I've ever done. But anyway, moving on. Here's the Primus. He's also kind of got a little bit of a minimal conversion. I gave him some yellow in his suit to give it kind of a hazmat look. The Magus is one of my favorite models in the army. I gave him the Ymgarl head with the tentacles because I just love the Lovecraftian tentacle face look. And then I stuck the proboscis of a plague drone to be a mouth hand. And then I took a Nighthaunt scythe. I don't remember exactly which scythe from which character or whatever, but took a Nighthaunt scythe and I gave it to him because that just is a little bit more nurgly to me. Over here on the Biophagist, you can see I put some bits of Fabius Bile on him. I gave him some new robotic arms and some extra vials on his back. And next to him, we've got the Abominant. The base of this model is actually a Skaven Stormfiend, and I've done a bunch of green stuff work to add some pustules and stuff, and I gave him some extra arms. I gave him an actual aberrant head because it's really gross to have the two heads that are kind of splitting apart and the tongue hanging out there. Feels very nurgly to me. I also gave him a big mace on one arm. I don't remember exactly where I got that bit. And I also gave him an Acolyte saw for a fist. Now their bodyguard unit here is the Aberrants, which are mostly just standard Aberrants, but I stuck a bunch of Poxwalker bits on them. So you can see knives sticking out of their backs from the Poxwalkers. Some of them are holding Poxwalker weapons. I gave them all the Poxwalker heads because I like the smaller heads. I like the smaller heads because it makes their proportions look even more huge, gnarly, and kind of gross, and just a little bit more freaky. Up here, skulking in the shadows, we've got the Sanctus, the Sniper Sanctus. His conversion's a little basic as well. He's got a Poxwalker head, and I kind of messed with his gun a little bit to give it a little bit more of a chaos look, but otherwise he's mostly normal, just the paint job is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. Now on the other side, I've got the Clamavis over here, which is really just a slightly 40k'd up Spoilpox Scrivener. I gave him a little tank on his back full of green goop, and I gave him a pistol and a pickaxe. And then moving on this way, cometh the hour, cometh the hero. Can't forget about the Rudy Tooty Cowboy Shooty himself, the Keller Morph. He's one of my favorite models in the entire GSC range, so I didn't want to change him up too much. I mostly just did some weapon swaps and added a few little bits here and there to make him look a little bit more Plague Touch, a little more nurgly. So he's got, see the swinging chains with the heads on them. but I'm very happy with how he turned out. My icon ward here is actually built from one of the Blackstone Fortress cultists, kind of smashed together with the actual Acolyte icon ward kit. So he's got the same Acolyte head and the same banner, which I modified just a little bit, but mostly he is that Chaos Cultist base. And he is leading the meat of my army, which is the Acolyte hybrids. I personally love melee Genestealer cults, so I always have a bunch of these guys running around with saws and drills and mining tools and stuff. There's not really a ton of conversion on these guys outside of some of the squad leaders, but I made sure that the paint jobs conveyed Nurgle as much as I could with a bunch of gross blood and pus everywhere. I used a lot of Nurgle's rot across the entire army, if you couldn't tell. And a lot of the bases are doing the heavy lifting too with the Necromunda bases. Fighting alongside the Acolytes is the Cowardly Neophytes. I'm not a big fan of ranged Genestealer cults, but you gotta take them because they, you know, play the game or something. But you can see with these guys that I've intermixed a lot of Chaos Cultist bits and some Cawdor gang member bits from Necromunda. Even though, you know, House Cawdor worships the Corpse Emperor or whatever, they sure look awfully chaosy. So, yeah. I use the crossbow-looking things as grenade launchers, and the big, long staff guns are really just their normal auto guns or whatever you want to call them. Hybrid firearms, I think is the technical term. Moving on to some vehicles. I've got some Goliaths here. First is the standard truck, which I greensed up some tentacles on and some gross stuff and some pustules and some nurgly grossness to be my little bubotic fairy that carries around all of my little men. And then next to that is my rock grinder, which uses the front bit of the Plague Burst Crawler. I knew as soon as I started this army that that was going to be one of the things that I wanted to do, because that just feels like a no-brainer, right? You have to have a big shield grindy thing on the front of a rock grinder, and the Plague Burst Crawler front bit just looks perfect for that. And it fits pretty well too. Now, it falls off all the time because gluing that on is a little rough because of the contact points being so small. Finally, we have the Achilles Ridge Runners. With these guys, I kind of just stuck some chaos bits on there, like the front bits and the little Nurgle icons. I stuck some spikes on some of the wheels and put some spikes on the front. But overall, it's kind of the same theme with the whole army. I wanted them to be recognizable for what they are inside the Genestealer Cult army, but I just wanted them to look a little bit more corrupted, chaos corrupted, Nurgle corrupted, plague ridden, you know, all that good stuff. But that will do it for my Genestealer Cult Tenebris showcase. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. So I've had a ton of fun building this army over the years. I'm hoping to, over the next year or so, expand it a good bit, because coming up in spring of 2024, we have the Genestealer Cult Codex coming out. At least that's what's on the roadmap. We'll see if that ends up being true. But hopefully by then, I've expanded it by at least another 1,000 points or so. We'll see. Let me know if there's any of the other armies that you guys have seen on the channel that you want to see a showcase of. I think I kind of want to do one for my World Eaters at some point. Definitely going to do one for my Dark Angels. Doing these is a little bit of editing practice for me. I don't really know how to edit, and I'm not super comfortable recording videos, so a lot of this is just practice for that kind of stuff. But anyway, stay tuned for the showcases that I have coming up. Hopefully soon, within the next week or two, I'll have another one for you guys, and I will see you later.